I guess first of all, could you talk a bit about the work that you do?
Okay, I do a lot of work at street level in Winnipeg. I have a non-religious street mission that I do on Main Street in Winnipeg, where we uh, hand out food and warm clothing to our unsheltered population in Winnipeg. And I do 7 of these walks a week.
Um, could you talk a bit about how the work you does intertwines with taking care of your son?
Yes, definitely. It's the reason I do the work is to honor my son. So my son, I raised him on my own as a single dad until he was about 8 years old. And then I met my wife of today and we had 2 other children. My son developed schizophrenia in, was finally diagnosed in his early 20s, but had been struggling since he was, 12, 13, 14 years old. And it's been quite a journey with him. I love him with all my heart. But he's had lots of adventures and misadventures out in the community in terms of, at times being homeless, self-medicating. Uh, there was one very brutal act of attempted suicide. He's been on life support. He's been in and out of hospital. Um, yeah, just a lot of struggles over the years, and I do everything in my power every day to look after him. And it's by the grace of God and the efforts of myself and my network that we can maintain him in the community. I just worry that after I pass away, that there'll be no one to look after him, and that he'll end up homeless. He'll end up on the streets. And so I'm almost not because of that, but it's almost like a paying it forward. Like I'm going to help as many people as I can out on the streets, so that maybe one day, if my son ever finds himself there, there'll be a good person that'll help him out.
Could you explain some of your son's symptoms with schizophrenia?
Sure. Um, so it's if I look way back, it kind of started in grade 7, age 12. He started having some difficulties. I think just feeling okay, feeling settled, feeling peaceful. And so that translated into some acting out behavior. And by the time he was in grade 9, he couldn't even finish grade 9. He was too distracted. He tried a couple more times to finish grade 9 in the following years, but it just never worked out for him. He ended up working in kind of like for restaurants, like being a dishwasher, short order cook, that kind of thing for the longest time. And then he seemed to, as he got into his later teens, and he always used marijuana quite a bit. And I think that might be a contributing factor to his illness. But I noticed in his later teens that he was starting to withdraw and isolate himself, and so I thought maybe he had a really bad depression. But then he started getting very paranoid, kind of delusional around. He thought that people were out to harm him, and then that grew stronger and stronger and stronger until um, one day he actually he broke into some businesses just to go through their filing cabinets just to see if they had any information on him, things like that. He the one brutal act of self-harm he did to himself was to take himself out because he didn't want to be captured by some bad people and held captive and tortured and that kind of thing. He was so fearful that's why he tried to end his life. So he's had auditory and probably visual hallucinations. He's had delusions, paranoia. He's not been able to work. He's not been able to go to school. He lives very isolated in his apartment, but does get out a lot. He We tried all different medications. Nothing really worked for him. So he hasn't even been on medication for years, but he's kind of at a stable baseline for him, even though for others might not be a stable baseline, but for him it is. But it takes a lot of effort for me to make sure he doesn't get evicted because of noise that he makes, banging he does, and playing his electronics very loud. And also how much he just will not clean up. And so there's a lot of like I have to do a deep clean of his place once a week. Otherwise, it's almost toxic in there in terms of rotting food, cigarette butts, stuff like that.
Um, could you talk a bit about what that's like as a parent?
It's heartbreaking because as a parent, you cannot be happier than your child, and it's heartbreaking that it's I don't know. He seems in a way at peace, which is good. Like he's found his own routine, you know, so that's good. But I just wonder if he's lonely. I wonder about, many of the needs that are not getting met for him socially because he's so isolated. Like he truly lives in his own world.
Um, how would you explain schizophrenia to somebody who maybe doesn't have an understanding of it?
I would say that it's a very diverse illness. It's fairly prevalent. I believe at least 1% of Canadians will be diagnosed with schizophrenia in their lifetime. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you were to fill Stadium with a random 30,000 people, 300 of them would have schizophrenia. And that's a large number for individuals and families and communities to deal with. So how would I explain it? I would explain it that people with schizophrenia have the propensity to have hallucinations, delusions, and psychosis. And psychosis is at times being out of touch with reality, fear, paranoia, which affects mood, it affects behavior, it affects the ability to work and maintain your own place. A lot of the people that I work with at the street level that are homeless, I believe, have schizophrenia, and there's no one looking after them, and they're just not able to function, and they end up on the street. And but I do know lots of people that have found the right medication and have stabilized, and can work a job and have a life. And so I think it's so different for everybody that has schizophrenia. Their experiences are kind of similar, but kind of different and unique, each of them. So I've seen really high functioning people. And, so Dan, the fact that, you are doing this project, you're interviewing me, like that's not something my son could ever do. So that makes me feel really good about your situation. I'm sure you have other struggles and other things you go through, but I just think people function at different levels with that illness. We've tried everything, we've done our best. I do think he has a very, very serious bout of schizophrenia. His version is quite debilitating, I believe.
Could you talk a bit about your personal spiritual beliefs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am very spiritual in that I believe in a higher power. I believe in the goodness of the universe. I believe that we're in a fight between good forces and good energy and shadow and darkness, and that we have to just, every day fight that battle, internally, externally. Um, I believe that I believe in the um, I guess the oneness, the the connection between all living things as really just one big being, and that I'm part of that. I'm just a little tiny speck of that, and that death doesn't bother me too much. I've lost a lot of people, and one day I'll leave this earth, but I just believe that we'll all be together always, going forward. Like I'll always be part of this universe.
Would you say that you believe in God?
Yeah, like the trouble with the word
Mm-hmm.
is that it conjures up different perceptions by different people.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a triggering word. I know people use the word creator,
Mm-hmm.
God, Lord, uh, the universe, higher power, like just something bigger than you and something to surrender to.
Could you talk a bit about the work that your father did?
My dad, yeah, my dad was a really good man. Um, he had a lot of hard things happen to him as a child in terms of trauma, but I think he overcame them really well. He ended up working for his dad's company, which was a painting and sandblasting company. And he did that for many years, and he always uh, hired vulnerable people that needed jobs, and he always looked after them and took care of them. And I remember going to visit, his men on the weekends and on the evenings to, bring them food, to visit them, to make sure they weren't lonely. So my dad was very generous in that way. He also, like, we grew up in the church, so he always did a lot for, people in the parish, newcomers, getting people furniture, helping people out, always kind of being a leader and always trying to do good things in the community. I learned that from him.
What is your greatest hope for your son?
I just hope that, because I don't really, really, really know how he's doing. Like he seems like, he seems like he's okay in his own world. Um, but I hope he's not missing anything that he does want. So I just hope for peace. I hope that he's not ever too tortured by his illness. I hope that he lives as long as he wants and needs to, and I hope that one day he will pass peacefully and be in heaven.
Um, I think you spoke about this at the Schizophrenia Gala, but I think you made a comment about how sometimes you wonder if it would be better if he were to pass before you.
Yeah, that's kind of selfish in a way, because I just feel sick about leaving him behind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would understand where I went. Should I die? And plus, like I said, I'm not sure who has the ability to look after him once I'm gone. That's the problem. I've over these last 20 years, it's evolved that I'm the only one that he lets help him, right? So in a way, we've created this dependent relationship where he relies on me for maybe, passed away in and around the same time as me. We could just go to heaven together.
Um, what solutions do you see just from your work in terms of helping people with schizophrenia? What would you suggest?
Um, well, I don't. It almost seems like I don't know what the answer is because there's a balance between human rights and just trying to rescue some folks from their own misery, right? So, like, I understand that apprehending people, is very, very um, serious, right? Like, and what I mean by that is if someone is very, very, very psychotic and living out on the streets, they could be a danger to themselves and others. And where does personal freedom, what's the balance? Like, and I see people out there really suffering, and it's like no one's looking after them. And sometimes I think, what kind of society do we live in that we allow people to suffer like that? Like, in the middle of the winter, I see people underdressed and out all night, and you know, enduring their psychosis, and they're so at risk, and they're so vulnerable, and anything can happen to them, and it's heartbreaking. So then part of me thinks, well, we should just be able to maybe hold them for a while, until they can stabilize, and then try to work with them towards a plan. But then on the other hand, we have to, there's a slippery slope there, because we have to respect um, privacy. We have to respect, self-determination and human rights too, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know. I know if my son was totally out of control, that I could get a mental health warrant and I could have him detained.
Sorry, some kind of internet issue right there on my end. Um, you could get a mental health warrant and have him detained.
Yeah, my son, I could do that. Like, if he were to get really, really out of control, right?
Hmm.
If he were to get like just really, really psychotic, and just right out of control, um, and he'd be at risk of harm, then I could petition for a mental health warrant. I could have him detained, and until he was stabilized, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but what I'm saying is, I could do that for my son, but then there's all these other folks that live on the streets that no one's doing that for,
Right.
right? So it's almost like, we go about our business as a society, and there's some very ill people that no one's looking after out there, and it's really heartbreaking when I see that.
Why do you think that work spoke so deeply to you? Like, as you point out, there's many people that just go about their business and keep walking.
Yeah. Well, I do have a lot of empathy. I'm a is blessed and cursed with empathy. Um, so I've had my own struggles with mental health, and with some trauma in childhood, and so but that's afforded me some empathy for others. And but certainly what my son has gone through, and he's my hero. Like, I just love him so much. Like, he's my number one hero in life. um it gives me a lot of empathy for the people I see out on the streets, because that could be my son out there, and maybe if I do pass away, maybe he will be out there, and maybe someone will look after him.
Could you talk a bit about how you view God or creator, whatever word you'd like to use, and you in terms of uh the work that you do, but also taking care of your son? How do you see all those things going together?
um well, in every religion that I've been to, it's about someone greater than us. It's about surrender. It's about faith. It's about trust. It's about um, the battle between light and shadow. And I just think all of creation, all living things, including the humans, are part of this one big being. And we come to the earth, we come to our life for a reason, maybe to learn something. And so I'm constantly asking myself, am I learning what I came here to learn, right? And so things happen, and in every difficult situation, there's something to learn. So, uh, like on one hand, my son suffers. Uh, so you have to kind of accept. You have to accept what the reality is and make the best of it. And try to help him have the best quality of life as possible, and while just doing self-care and taking care of ourselves, and as a family. But I have a lot of faith, and uh, some humility around the fact that life is a mystery, and I'm just going to live it out, and I'll do the best I can, and I'll help my son the best I can, and whatever happens happens.
What would you say you have faith in?
mm, I think I have faith in the human.
Could you, sorry.
Yeah, it froze there, didn't it?
Yeah, it's okay though. What would you say you have faith in?
So I have faith in Creator, a higher power, the universe, Mother Earth, the human spirit, all living things, all of creation, all the plants, the animals, the insects, everything. I have faith in all of that. I have faith in this life that we've all been given. And I have hope and trust and faith that we'll all make the best of it in sometimes a very discouraging world. And currently there's a lot of stress going on all over the world right now, and it's heartbreaking.
Um, how do you reconcile the suffering that your son has with your spirituality?
Well, that's also a great question. I've from time to time I've been angry. I've been upset with creation and God and the universe. Why would you give him, any suffering? He didn't do anything to anybody wrong. He didn't deserve, uh, to have psychosis. He didn't deserve to struggle. Why couldn't you have given him just a regular life, right? And so, yeah, but I mean, that comes and goes. It's not persistent or lasting, but it does come and go, those feelings.
Could you talk a bit about the day that you had to move your son's TV?
Yeah, that was a hard day. So my son had, back in the day when TVs were really, really big and heavy, like big tube TVs, not the flat screen kind.
Hmm.
My son had pushed and shoved and dragged his TV across the living room and to the window, and pushed it out the three-story apartment block window, and it luckily no one was nearby and no one was hurt, but it just shattered all over the parking lot, which uh, upset everyone. And the landlord called me right away to come down, thinking Joe was. And it basically stopped traffic because he had all the parts of the TV were strewn and dragged upon on the road, which had stopped up the first few cars, and then the cars behind them, and pretty soon there was a bit of a traffic jam. And so by the time I got there was a lot of upset people, and And so when I got there, I started to try and free the road up by dragging all the parts of the TV off the road. And it wasn't maybe the first few cars who had seen what really happened, but I think all the cars behind them didn't see what happened. And when they saw me cleaning it up, they probably assumed that I was just, a negligent person who allowed my TV to fly out of my truck or something, didn't secure it properly or whatever, and they were mad at me. They were upset at me because I had blocked the road, and they were honking and shouting at me, and it might not have been that bad. I don't know, but it just felt really intense. It felt like the weight of the world was crashing down on me. And I remember thinking, if they only knew, if they only knew, if they only knew what my son goes through, what we go through as a family, would they be treating us like this? So it was a good teaching, because now I don't assume anybody, even if they behave badly, I don't make any assumption about them, because no one knows what the other is going through. No one knows what the other has to deal with in their life.
I know you're not a Catholic or anything, but was it sort of a feeling of you're carrying your cross across the road?
That's right. Yeah, and in fact, Dan, I was a Catholic. I
Mm.
was born into the Catholic Church. I was an altar boy, and I went to Sunday school, and I learned all about Jesus, which I still hold those stories close to my heart of how Jesus lived. So I have no problem with Jesus. I have some other problems with the church itself, the man-made church, and its role in the history of our world. But that's another subject. So I'm not a practicing Catholic or even a practicing churchgoer anymore. But I certainly believe in the spirit of Jesus and the stories of Jesus. And yes, that's what it felt like. It felt like I was carrying the cross across St. Mary's Road. And that cross was the burden of my son's illness.
Um, is there anything else that you were hoping to talk about?
No, we covered pretty much everything, Dan. You're a very good interviewer.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
enjoyed.
This is good
Yeah,
answers.
I really enjoyed your questions were really good and really challenging, and forced me to really look deep inside. So I really enjoyed this time with you, Dan.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for making time to do the interview. It was great to have you and Regina at the Schizophrenia Gala. We really enjoyed the
Yeah,
talk there.
yeah, it was a very good day. I made that day in honor of Joseph.
Right.
That's the reason I went. The reason I went was to honor my son. The reason I work with our homeless, unsheltered population every day is to honor my son.
That makes sense. Um, yeah, thank you again.
Okay, we're good?
I think we're good. I feel like that's a good place to end it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk again.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.